What's going on, guys? It's Mike Doherty here from Sky's the Limit. Today, I wanted to talk to you about purchasing a property 101. We host a podcast called Sky's the Limit. Check us out. A lot of the feedback I'm getting from many of our listeners is you guys talk a lot about real estate investing. That's awesome, but I really want to get down to the nuts and bolts. If I'm currently renting a house or I'm a first-time home buyer or thinking about buying a single-family condo or residential multifamily property, what are the first steps I have to take? Do I call a realtor first? Do I do a lender, reach out to a lender first? The difference between lenders and brokers, are they all under the same roof, same company, or can I, talk to different lenders, different realtors? So I just want to break down a standard home buying process, the first thing you should do when you're thinking about buying a home. So the first thing to do is really find a realtor. So number one, realtor. And the reason why you want to find a realtor is because they're going to be basically your avenue for referrals to lenders, to attorneys that you're eventually going to need. So the first step is to find a realtor. How do you find a realtor? Some great ways to find a realtor are to ask friends and family for referrals. Referrals are the best resource to do that. You can also go on Facebook, and I'm sure many other different forums. I know Zillow has a lot of leads to realtors that are paying for ads and sponsorships there. So to find a realtor, Facebook groups, friends and family referrals, and hopefully they have a lot of, reviews that you can, go through and sift. And you really want to find a realtor if you're looking for, in a specific area within your state, find a realtor that kind of hyper focuses on the area because they're going to be the most knowledgeable. So step one is to find a realtor, many different ways to do that. Step two is to then talk to a lender. So you find a realtor, and if you don't know where to find a lender, then you can ask your realtor for a referral. Many realtors work with specific lenders, and it's important to find a lender that understands your buy criteria. So what are you going to tell a lender? They're going to ask you where you want to buy a property. Is it a single family? Is it a condo? Are you looking for a multifamily and you're going to live in maybe one of the units? Because their application process is going to be a little different. So, for example, if you talk to a lender and you are buying a single family house, there's no other income to support that mortgage payment. It's just based on your own personal or you and your spouse's or a significant other's debt to income ratio combined. Now, let's say you're buying a multifamily house, 2 to 4 units, let's say, and you're going to live in one of those units. Let's take a 4-unit, for example. You're going to buy a 4-unit property. You are going to live in one of the units. A lender will actually count 70 to 75% of the rental income of that property is producing towards your income. So let's say you buy a 4-family house and there's 3 additional units to be rented. You're going to stay in one unit. You're going to rent out the other 3 at $1,000 a pop. That's $3,000 of total rental income. Now, they're going to count 70 to 75% of the $3,000 towards your overall monthly income. So you have your W-2 job or maybe your 1099 worker. They're also going to count this other rental income to qualify you for this property. It helps you qualify. It makes you a better borrower. So you found your realtor. You then have a referral to a few different lenders, and it's okay to talk to a few lenders. There's a specific period where your credit's going to be pulled when talking to it, and it won't get pulled more than a few times. It won't hurt your credit more than a few different pulls. So you found your realtor, then you got your lender. Then what your realtor will do is he's going to set you up on what's called, at least here in Connecticut, it's called the MLS. It's the multiple listing source. This is where all listings originate. It's so if you're on Zillow, Realtor, Trulia, Redfin, any of these sites, they all get properties originally from the MLS and it syncs to these sites. So it's okay to look at them, but they're going to originate first on the MLS. So your realtor is going to set you up on MLS and it's going to be based on your criteria. So this could be, let's use Connecticut as an example. I want to buy a single family house in Hartford County. I'm open to a couple different towns and I have a budget of $300,000. And I came up with that budget because I talked to my lender. He said, based on your income, you are qualified to buy a single family house up to $300,000. And this is based on the taxes, the insurance, your down payment, it's another important part that you're going to talk to your lender about is what are you going to qualify for a down payment? Most first-time home buyers generally go to a low down loan, and that's okay. Couple things to know about a low down loan. So I'll go over here. Is there's a couple different types. You can do a conventional low down loan, and this would be something like 5, 10, 15% down, anything less than 20% technically. You will have to pay, if you're less than 20% down, PMI insurance. This is private mortgage insurance that the lender and the bank is going to require on this loan because you're putting less than 20% down. And that's okay. It's okay to have PMI insurance. If you don't go the conventional route, there's another loan program that many people know as FHA. This is a government-sponsored loan, and it's 3.5% down of the purchase price. So 3.5% of $300,000 would be your total down payment. So you found your realtor. They referred you to a lender. You talked to a lender that you really like, and they qualified you for a $300,000 home loan. Your realtor then sets you up on the MLS, and now you're getting an email sent to you, probably daily, of properties, single-family houses that come up in your area that are $300,000 or less. And these are properties that you want to eventually go look at. So the next step is you actually go and set up showings. You reach out to your realtor and you say, hey, 123 Main Street just came on the market. I really like it. It fits all my criteria. Is there anything I need to know about this property before we set up a showing? Ask any questions you may want. A lot of realtors on their side of the MLS have called agent notes that you can't see as a buyer in your portal. And so ask them, is there any disclosures I should know about, anything in general? So if everything checks out, then the realtor is going to set you up for a showing. The thing about showings, it's free to do, and it's also free to hire a realtor as a buyer. So if I want to go buy 123 Main Street or any house for that matter, I can hire a realtor. I'm not paying that realtor. Buyer agent realtors, they make their compensation from the seller of the property. The seller goes into a contract with the listing agent who's going to sell their property for typically 5 to 6% of the sales price. Okay? That 5 to 6% gets split with the buyer realtor. So you as the buyer don't ever have to pay your realtor. And so all this crazy thing about all this right here, it's all free. It doesn't cost you a dime to get set up on the MLS. It doesn't cost you a dime to go find a lender. It doesn't cost you a dime to go find a realtor. You spent $0 so far. Crazy. Now you're at showings. You go, you look at houses, and now you want to start making an offer. This is where you should work with an experienced realtor who, one, knows the market, but also understands how a contract works. And they should. If they're a realtor, they should understand how a contract works. So we'll talk about contracts for a second. Sorry for my handwriting. So contracts. The next step is when you want to make an offer. Now, a realtor is going to help you through this process, and they're going to talk to you about a couple different offer strategies depending on what your market's doing at the time. Like right here in Connecticut and all of New England for that matter, it's a very hot market, over asking bids. People are waiving their inspection contingencies. You don't have to do any of that, but it's a very competitive market right now, even with rates where they're at. So you want to make an offer, and let's say you find your dream home, it's $300,000. What happens next? The realtor does a contract for you. They fill it out. You don't have to fill out anything. And the first thing is the offer price. So we're going to say $300,000. Let's say that you got approved for a 3.5% down loan. So just do some quick math real quick. 3.5% on $300,000 is $10,500, right? So that's your total down payment. This equals 3.5% of 300K. So that is the amount of money you've been pre-approved for, and you have to have this liquid cash in your checking account. It can't be stocks and bonds and 401ks. This has to be in your checking account. I would never really advise borrowing against your 401k as there's penalties. So you've started doing your showings, and now you're making offers through your realtor. and you have been pre-approved for $300,000 and 3.5% down on FHA loan. Great. So let's say you get your offer accepted. Now what? The first step when getting an offer accepted is you have to put down a deposit. At least in Connecticut, a contract is not fully executed. So buyer or seller agrees to accept the buyer's offer, and that's still not considered a fully executed contract until an earnest money deposit is accepted. So it's called EMD. This is earnest money deposit. And when a deposit is, it's a good faith deposit from the buyer, and it goes towards your overall down payment. So typically a deposit is 1 to 2% of the purchase price. So if you're buying a $300,000 house, you're going to typically put $3,000 or $6,000 down, and that goes towards the overall down payment. So let's say we do 1% of a $300,000 purchase. So that's your earnest money deposit is $3,000 now. This is going towards the 10.5 total down payment. This is your down payment. This is your earnest money deposit. So what's next? You've now got your offer accepted. Both you and the seller have agreed to sell the house for $300,000. You put down your earnest money deposit of $3,000. Now typically what happens is inspections. This is a time allotted in the contract in the whole buying process where you typically have 10 to 14 days to hire an inspector. This is a third-party company that you would hire and you pay for out of your own pocket. It's not a closing cost. And it's typically, if you're buying a single-family house, it's typically going to be between $500 to $800. Different states and different companies varying. But let's assume $500. You pay $500 to the third-party inspector, and they're going to go to this house, and you're allowed to accompany them. I would urge you to go with the inspector. And they're going to pick apart the house. It is their job to find things wrong with the house, right? So you go through the inspection. You have 10 to 14 days, as I mentioned, to get this done. You can bring anyone you want. You can bring your third-party home inspector. If you want to bring an additional plumber, great. If you want to bring an additional chimney guy or HVAC guy or irrigation guy, whatever you want to do, you have 10 to 14 days to get it done. If you don't get it done in 10 to 14 days, your realtor can extend that due diligence period. Okay, so let's say you go through it, you spend your $500, you got your inspections, a couple things came up, nothing deal breaking, but it's your realtor's job to negotiate the offer price or any what's called seller credits if there is things wrong that you want money back. I'm a huge proponent of getting seller credits versus lowering the purchase price, and I'll tell you why. If I'm putting $10,500 down, which we all agreed is 3.5% of $300,000, and I find if I find a chimney needs to be repointed, let's say, it's going to be $3,000. Rather than me lowering the price of this house to $297,000, I would rather get $3,000 back at closing. So that's where the seller is actually giving you $3,000 towards your closing costs and prepaids. And the reason why I would do that is, right now, you have to put $10,500 down on $300,000. If he lowered the price to $297,000, you still got to put 3.5% down. So that's $10,395. Not much of a savings, right? 10,395. This is now my down payment. However, if my realtor negotiated $3,000 back at closing, well, now instead of the 10.5 I have to bring to the table, 10.5, simple math here, minus 3,000 is $7,500. Sorry for the scratch. This is my cash to close now. That is significantly less than this. So I'm always a big proponent, and I can do a separate video on this about why seller credits are way more powerful and impactful to a buyer than reducing the overall purchase price. So let's, for the sake of this video, assume that nothing was wrong. You're good at $300,000 and you did not need any seller credits. You don't need to ask for the realtor to reduce the price. You're good to go. So now your negotiations are done. Your due diligence period is up. And now you're working with your lender primarily to work towards the appraisal. This is one of the biggest parts of any sale process. This is where your lender sends out an appraiser, a third-party appraiser, to see if the house is worth $300,000 that you're willing to pay. So what they do is they go out to the house. You do not accompany them on this process. It's just the appraiser and the listing agent actually. So you're waiting to hear back from your lender to see what the results were. So the appraiser is going to go out and he's going to take pictures of the property you're buying, and he's going to then look on the MLS, which you're already on, and he's going to say, let's see all the closed properties, the ones that have sold, that are similar to my $300,000 within a mile, maybe 2 mile radius, depending on if it's rural or urban, right? So then after they look at all their research, they pull all their comps, they look at comparables, they then give a report back to the bank, the lender, and they make a decision we'll see what the appraisal came in at. Generally speaking, unless you did a crazy over asking offer, 8 out of 10 times it's going to come in at $300,000, maybe a little higher, maybe $1,000 or $2 less, but generally speaking, right around $300,000 is what you're willing to pay. So the appraisal comes in, it's at $300,000. Congratulations. The house is worth what you're paying. The bank is willing to lend $300,000, or actually a little less, right? Because you're putting $10,500 down. And so now the next step is closing day. And this is really important. So it's not just $10,500 that you have to put down. You also have closing costs. Now, closing costs are costs associated with closing the loan. This is attorney fee, title, lender fees. A lot of times if you're buying a house that has existing oil tank and the owner of that property filled the oil tank, you actually have to give them a credit at closing for the whatever oil's left over, because now it's your oil, you're buying the house. So typically speaking, on let's say a $300,000 house, you could expect to have at least $5,000 to $10,000 in additional closing costs. Again, this is your attorney fee. This is $1,000 probably all day. Title, lender fees most likely. And there's a lot of other little fees that you have to pay for at closing. The things outside of closing that you already paid for was your inspection, $500 to $800, and you also have to pay for your appraisal. That's outside of closing as well. So you could see how the 10.5 quickly adds up to maybe $20,000. So again, keep in mind, it's not just $10,500. You have your inspection, you have your appraisal, and then at the closing table, you have these other closing costs. So one of the biggest, and to wrap this video up, one of the biggest misconceptions at the closing is people see this big number, and what you do is the biggest expense is typically your escrowing taxes and insurance. The lender, the mortgage originator, the lender, the one giving you the loan, it's requiring you to escrow taxes and insurance for 3 to 6 months. And these are prepaid things in advance. So if your taxes on this $300,000 house are $10,000, you have to come up with prepaid 6 months of that. So you could see how that's a big chunk of your overall closing costs. The one thing a lot of people sometimes forget, and again, make sure your realtor does this, is the day of the closing, you want to make sure you do a final walkthrough on your house. So keep in mind, you saw the house once when you did your initial walkthrough. You loved the house, you made your offer, and then you did your inspection. So you were there for that as well. And now about 20 to 30 days have passed since the last time you were there. You just want to make sure that the house is still standing and that you don't just go get a loan and put your name down on something that isn't what you thought it was. So typically, either the same day as your closing before you go to the closing, or the night before, you go back to the house, check it out, make sure that everything's in order. Sometimes you can even get keys then if the both parties agree. And you just make sure everything's good to go. Then you go to your closing, you give them the remaining down payment, and you pay your closing fees. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. Again, you want to find your realtor first, who then can recommend some lenders, talk to a few, ask them questions. Your realtor will then set you up on the MLS or whatever your state's multiple listing source is there. You'll get a budget set by the lender, whatever you're comfortable with. You don't have to use it all. They'll advise you on what kind of down payment you're looking at. Again, anything under 20%, you're going to have private mortgage insurance. It's okay. That actually drops off once you reach 20% equity. And that can happen just by appreciation. So when I bought my single family house, I put 10% down. Within a year, it appreciated, and then my PMI insurance automatically dropped off. So I lowered my bill by a couple $100. On a $300,000 house, private mortgage insurance is probably $120 to $150 a month. So that's in addition to your principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, homeowners insurance. You then have private mortgage insurance. And this all comes in one monthly bill from the lender sent to your house so you can pay it. A lot of people just do automatic direct deposit. So again, realtor, lender, you'll get pre-approved. You then do your showings. You then go into contract when you make an offer. Again, remember what a contract, a seller accepts your offer, and you also have to make a deposit to make that contract valid. You're now fully executed. You then do your inspection, negotiate things after an inspection, and then you can move towards closing, the appraisal, and that's in a nutshell. So I can go into a couple more things. Please like and subscribe. And if you have any questions or comments, make sure to comment below. I'll be happy to answer any questions you have. We're here in Connecticut, full-time real estate investors, realtor as well, work with many lenders. So if anyone needs any references or resources, be happy to help. And I'd love to hear how you found your realtor. Was it through Zillow, Trulia? Was it recommended to you? So again, thank you for watching. And just remember, sky's the limit. Dive deep and invest in how you want to live. Tune in next time.